Good morning, students. Welcome to today's class. Today we are going to discuss the lesson A Truly Beautiful Mind. This is a lesson about the greatest scientist the world has ever seen, Albert Einstein. He was a greatest scientist of the world. And this lesson throws light to his life and his works in the field of science as well as in the field of politics. As the title suggests, a truly beautiful mind, it means Einstein has a very beautiful mind. Okay, that means the lesson focuses on his personality as a human being in the field of world peace and democracy. Okay, so let's go to the lesson. Albert Einstein was born on 14th March 1879 in the German city of Ulm, without any indication that he was destined for greatness. So Albert Einstein was born on 14th March 1879 in the city of Ulm in Germany. And at the time of his birth, no one has considered that he will reach in such a height. On the contrary, his mother thought Albert was a freak. To her, his head seemed much too large. So, Albert Einstein's mother thought at first that Albert was a freak. Freak means a person who has unusual behavior. Okay, he was not like the normal children. So, Albert's mother thought that he was a freak. And why she considered it so? Because to her, his head seemed much too large. His head was larger than the normal size. So his mother thought that he was a freak. A freak means a person who has unusual behavior. He does not look like others. At the age of 2.5, Einstein still wasn't talking. When he finally did learn to speak, he uttered everything twice. So up to the age of 2.5, Einstein was not talking. So when he began to speak, he said everything twice. Einstein did not know what to do with other children. He does not know how to deal with other children, how to talk and how to play with other children. So his playmates called him brother boring. So his classmates called him brother boring. So the youngster played by himself much of the time. So he was alone. He plays alone by himself. He especially loved mechanical toys. Einstein was very fond of mechanical toys like cars and all. Okay, those the toys which have an engine and all. Looking at his newborn sister Maja, he said to have said, "Fine, but where are her wheels?" Okay, so he considered his sister as a mechanical toy. So he asked that, where are her wheels? A headmaster once told his father that what Einstein chose as a profession wouldn't matter because he will never make a success at anything. So once the headmaster of Einstein told his father that Einstein will not be successful at any profession. Einstein began learning to play the violin at the age of 6 because his mother wanted him to. He later became a gifted amateur violinist, maintaining this skill throughout his life. So Einstein learned playing violin at the age of 6 because his mother wanted him to. His mother wants Einstein to learn how to play violin, and that skill he continued throughout his life. He became a gifted amateur violin. Amateur means doing something for personal enjoyment rather than as a profession. Okay, he was a skilled violinist, and he maintained that quality throughout his life. But Albert Einstein was not a bad pupil. Pupil means student. He was not a bad student. He went to high school in Munich, where Einstein's family had moved when he was 15 months old, and scored good marks in almost every subject. Okay, he did his high school in Munich in Germany, and his parents were moved to Munich when he was 15 months of old, and he scored good marks in every subject. Einstein hated the school's regimentation and often clashed with his teachers, but Einstein hated the strict discipline of that school. Regimentation means discipline, strict discipline. So he hated that. Often clashed with his teachers. Because of that strict discipline, he had to quarrel with his teachers. At the age of 15, Einstein felt so stifled there that he left the school for good. So at the age of 15, he felt stifled. Stifled means did not like the atmosphere. He was suffocated, and stifled means suffocate, unable to breathe. That much he didn't like the atmosphere of the school, so he left the school for good, means so he left the school forever. The previous year, Albert's parents had moved to Milan and left their son with relatives. So before Einstein left the school, 1 year before that, his parents had been moved to Milan. Milan is in Italy, and Einstein was kept with his relatives. After prolonged discussion, Einstein got his wish to continue his education in German-speaking Switzerland, school in Switzerland, in a city which was more liberal than Munich. So, after a prolonged long discussion with his parents, he got permission from his parents to continue his education in a school in Switzerland, and it is more liberal. There he will get more freedom than the school in Munich. Einstein was highly gifted in mathematics and interested in physics, and after finishing school, he decided to study at a university in Zurich. Zurich is also in Switzerland. So after finishing his school, he decided to study in the university in Zurich. But science wasn't the only thing that appealed to the dashing young man with a walrus mustache. Okay, there is not only the science but also one more thing. He was attracted to one more thing in the university. He also felt a special interest in a fellow student, Mileva Maric, whom he found to be a clever creature. He was also interested in one of the fellow students, and her name is Mileva Maric, and he calls her as a clever creature. This young Serb had come to Switzerland because the university in Zurich was one of the few in Europe where women could get degrees. So she came from Serbia. That's what she is called, Serb. Okay, she came from the country Serbia, and she came to Europe because she came to university in Zurich because That was one of the few universities in Europe where women could get degrees, where women are allowed to study. Einstein saw in her an ally against the Philistines, those people in his family and at the university with whom he was constantly at odds. Okay, so when Einstein met Mileva, he saw in her an ally against the Philistines. Ally means company, a friend or an associate. He met in her a friend in her because she is also against Philistines. What is the meaning Philistines? Philistines is a word used disapprovingly to talk about people who do not like art, literature or music. Philistines is a word used to refer the people who does not like art and literature and music, etc. Okay, they will always these kind of people are against art, literature and music. So Einstein as well as Mileva Maric, both of them are against Philistines. They do not like such people. So Einstein began to love Mileva because their thoughts were similar. The couple fell in love. They become lovers. Letters survive in which they put their affection into words, mixing science with tenderness. They wrote letters in between. And once Einstein wrote, "How happy and proud I shall be when we both have brought our work on relativity to a victorious conclusion." So they wrote letters, and once Einstein wrote that he was very happy with her. In 1900, at the age of 21, Albert Einstein was a university graduate and unemployed. So, at the age of 21, Albert Einstein completed his graduation, but he didn't get any job. He worked as a teaching assistant, gave private lessons, and finally secured a job in 1902 as a technical expert in the patent office in Bern. So, in 1902, he got a job as a technical expert in the patent office. So, he worked as a before that he worked as a teaching assistant and gave private lessons. That means he took tuition, etc. So, finally he got a job in a patent office in Bern. Bern is in Switzerland. Okay, what is patent? Patent is a document which gives the rights of an invention to an inventor. If we get a scientist, if a scientist invented something, he wanted to register that in patent office, then he will get the patent. That means he will get the right to produce that invention and to produce and to sell that invention and all. That is called patent. While he was supposed to be assessing other people's inventions, Einstein was actually developing his own ideas in secret. So his job was to give patent to other people's inventions. So at the same time, Einstein was also developing his own ideas in secret. He is said to have jokingly called his desk drawer at work the Bureau of Theoretical Physics. So, his desk in the office, he called it jokingly as Bureau of Theoretical Physics. That means his desk drawer is full of ideas. His works were kept in that desk drawer. So, he called it as Bureau of Theoretical Physics. One of the famous papers of 1905 was Einstein's special theory of relativity. So he invented special theory of relativity and he published it in 1905, according to which time and distance are not absolute. Indeed, two perfectly accurate clocks will not continue to show the same time if they come together again after a journey, if one of them has been moving very fast relative to the other. So according to the theory of relativity, what is theory of relativity? That says that two perfectly accurate clocks will not continue to show the same time. It will vary. Okay. No one can means that same time cannot be shown in two clocks. Sometimes one of them has been moving very fast relative to the other. From this followed the world's most famous formula, which describes the relationship between mass and energy. E is equal to mc square, one of the greatest discoveries of science. Okay. So this was one of his famous papers or invention in 1905. While Einstein was solving the most difficult problems in physics, his private life was unraveling. So Einstein was discovering new things in science and he was solving the most difficult problems in physics. His private life was unraveling. Unraveling means starting to fail. Okay. Albert had wanted to marry Mileva right after finishing his studies, but his mother was against it. Albert wanted to marry his lover Mileva Maverick after completing his studies, but his mother opposed it. She thought Mileva, who was 3 years older than her son, was too old for him. Why she opposed the marriage? Because Mileva is 3 years older than Albert Einstein. She was also bothered by Mileva's intelligence, and his mother also troubled by Mileva's intelligence. She is a book like you, his mother said. She is also like Albert Einstein. They were both very intelligent and educated. His mother said Einstein put the wedding off. So because of his mother's opposition, he put the wedding off. The pair finally married in January 1903 and had 2 sons. So they finally married in 1903 and they had 2 sons. But a few years later, the marriage faltered. So they couldn't adjust with each other, so they separated. Mileva, meanwhile, was losing her intellectual ambition and becoming an unhappy housewife. After years of constant fighting, the couple finally divorced in 1919. Einstein married his cousin Elsa the same year. So after the divorce, Einstein married his cousin Elsa the same year. Einstein's new personal chapter coincided with his rise to world fame. So Einstein's new personal chapter coincided. Coincided means happening 2 things at the same time. Okay. He came into the world fame. He became world famous. In 1915, he had published his general theory of relativity, which provided a new interpretation of gravity. An eclipse of the sun in 1919 brought proof that it was accurate. So, first he published a general theory of relativity and it became proved in 1919. Einstein had correctly calculated in advance the extent to which the light from fixed stars would be deflected through the sun's gravitational field. So, the theory says that the light from fixed stars would be deflected. Deflected means changed, will change direction through the sun's gravitational field. The newspapers proclaimed his work as a scientific revolution. So this was a great invention, great discovery. So all the newspapers proclaimed his work, declared his work as a scientific revolution. Einstein received the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1921. So he got the Nobel Prize also. He was showered with honors and invitations from all over the world and lauded by the press. Lauded means praised. Press means newspapers. So he was at the extreme position of honors and famous. He became very famous. When the Nazis came to power in Germany in 1933, Einstein emigrated to the United States. When Germany became under the control of Nazi party, he emigrated to United States, because in Germany the Nazi party killed Jews and other minorities. Okay, so Einstein had a Jewish background, so he decided to go to America. 5 years later, the discovery of nuclear fission in Berlin had American physicists in and abroad. So after 5 years, in Berlin, in Germany, the Nazis has discovered the nuclear fission, means they tried to make atom bombs. So that made the American physicists in and abroad, the scientists in America, they become very upset. Many of them had fled from fascism, because all of them had many of them had come from Germany as a result of fascism or Nazis there, just as Einstein came to America. And now they were afraid the Nazis could build and use an atomic bomb. Now the American scientists, they become afraid of the making of atom bombs, because if they make atom bombs, the Nazi party, the Nazis will destroy the world through atom bombs. So all of them were in a fear. All of them were upset. At the urging of a colleague, Einstein wrote a letter to the American President Franklin D. Roosevelt on 2nd August 1939. At the urging of a colleague means at the compulsion. Urging means compel. At the compulsion of a colleague. Colleague means his fellow scientist. Einstein wrote a letter to the American President Franklin D. Roosevelt, in which he warned a single bomb of this type exploded in a pot might very well destroy the whole pot together with some of the surrounding territory. So in the letter, he tried to convince the after effects of atomic bombs. Okay, when it is exploded in a pot, it will destroy the whole pot or the surrounding territory. It will be a great destruction. If we use atom bombs, it will destroy everything. His words did not fail to have an effect. That means his words influenced the American president and they accepted his views. So they decided to develop an atom bomb. The Americans developed the atomic bomb in a secret project of their own and dropped it on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. So the Americans developed atom bombs and they dropped it on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in the Second World War because Japan supported Germany, the Nazis, in the Second World War. So America dropped the atom bombs first in Hiroshima and then in Nagasaki. Einstein was deeply shaken by the extent of the destruction. Though Einstein said that they have to develop atom bombs, but when he saw the destruction caused by the atom bombs, he was very much troubled by that. He was shocked. He was deeply shaken. This time he wrote a public missive to the United Nations. Okay, when he was sad about seeing the destruction caused by the atom bomb, he wrote a public missive. Public missive means letter. A public letter, a long letter to the United Nations. In it, he proposed the formation of a world government. So, he suggested the formation of a world government, the importance of forming a world government for peace and harmony. Unlike the letter to Roosevelt, this one made no impact, but this letter doesn't made any influence on the United Nations. He wrote the letter to stop nuclear weapons. Okay, he wrote the letter to stop the use of nuclear weapons like atom bombs and all because the destruction is too bad. But over the next decade, Einstein got ever more involved in politics. But over the next decade means 10 years. After the next 10 years, he enrolled into politics. He got ever more involved in politics. He used to involve in politics, agitating for an end to the arms build-up and using his popularity to campaign for peace and democracy. So he protested the use of arms, weapons, especially nuclear weapons, and he campaigned. He worked for peace and democracy in world. When Einstein died in 1955 at the age of 76, he was celebrated as a visionary and world citizen as much as a scientific genius. So when he died at the age of 76, he was celebrated. The world considered him as a visionary. Visionary means a person who can think about the future in an original and intelligent way. He was considered as a visionary, a great person, and as a world citizen because he worked for the whole world. Okay, he protested against the nuclear weapons and he supported peace and democracy all over the world. So he was considered as a world citizen. He was not only a scientific genius but also a world citizen. Okay, that means even though he is a very famous scientist, he worked for the good living of people or the peaceful worked for the peaceful living of people in the world. That is why the chapter itself titled A Truly Beautiful Mind. He has a true beautiful mind also. Despite of a scientist, he was a humanitarian also. So this is all about the story. This is all about the lesson, A Truly Beautiful Mind. Thank you.